Hey guys, like I said in the first video, caffeine. I have a 12 pack. Well, I have an 8 pack of root beer left. I'm telling you, this stuff is like your best friend when making music. So we did the intro. We have our drums for the intro. We have a nice little break and a nice little build up. And that's going to lead into our drop. And for drops, you have to learn how to program your own synth in Massive. So I'm going to teach you guys Massive. Let's throw Massive in. Just take a second and look at it. It looks retardingly complicated. It's really not. It's pretty simple. Right here, oscillator 1, oscillator 2, oscillator 3. I just press the power buttons, turning them on and off. Blue means on, gray is off. And that's for everything in here, like your filter and your amp. But oscillators just make the sound. So here you have like the wavetable that you want to use. They all sound different. Here you have like different modes. They sound different. Formant is like squeaky. Bend plus is pretty cool, and bend minus and all that. Spectrum is by default. You don't really have to worry about this. I mean, just play with like bend plus or bend minus plus, and you'll get some cool stuff. Here you have your pitch. You have your wavetable position again. So like, let's say we have a square to saw wave. All the way to the left is square. And you can see when I move that, it changes it to a saw wave. And we have our amp, or our intensity knob, which affects whatever mode this is on. Like, let's say it's on Spectrum. Okay, so that's whatever. And our amp is just the volume of our oscillator. Lastly, we have this fader, which you can route to filter 1, which will, if it's all the way up, you'll only send signal to filter 1. If it's all the way down, you'll send it only to filter 2. If it's in the middle, you'll send it through like half both. So that's that. Now we have these boxes, which are just for automation, which are these things, or modulation, I mean, and envelopes. We can modulate every one of these parameters by using like an envelope or something, which we'll get into later. So that's an oscillator, and we have 3 of them, so we can do 3 different sounds at once, which means we could have a lot of crap. Next is our modulation oscillator, which modulates our oscillators. I'm sorry. That's just fun. That was fun to say. We have a ring mod. I won't get technical. And 1, 2, and 3, we could put it to oscillator 1, oscillator 2, or oscillator 3. And this is the amount. Phase, I mean. Position. And the filter FM. FM to filter. I'm not gonna lie, I don't know what this one does. I'm guessing it has something to do with FM, frequency modulation, I think that stands for. But don't like hold me against that. We have our pitch, so like let's say it's at -12, and let's say we're phasing. Okay, and double clicking on any parameter will set it back to its default position. So like blah, double click, blah, double click. That's default apparently. Okay, so that's that. Now we have our noise, which also has a routing, a filter routing, as does our feedback, our color of the noise, and the amp, the same as the oscillators, is just like the volume. We could change this. So modulating these are always kind of fun if you want to get some weird effects. Our feedback, which we'll get into later. Hold on, let me put on. Feedback is like it's feeding signal back into the oscillators, and it's just kind of like adds distortion. You have a filter, routing filter, whatever. You have inserts, which are just like insert effects. Both of these are the same. We have a sample delay, sample and hold, simple delay, sample and hold, bit crusher, frequency shifter, high pass, low pass filter, sine shaper, parabolic shaper, and hard clipper. This is 1.3, massive, by the way. Then we have knobs for each of those, like dry, wet, pitch for sample and hold. For this, it's like low pass and high pass, and you can modulate both of these. Same thing for this. Right here are macro controls, which I showed you guys. You could macro certain controls, and it pretty much is just like controlling that knob from here. And yeah, so with all these that have like these little handles on them, that's for modulating crap, which we'll get into in a second right after I go over filters. So filter 1, we have all these high pass, low pass crap, the volume of it. So like low pass, cut off, and resonance. We have a blah blah blah, which is filter 2, same exact thing. This, I'm not 100% sure what this does. All I know is that if it's set all the way down, you'll only get like a signal from, let's say, hold on, let me put, this one has a saw, this one has this. Why do you hate me? Oh. Oh man, I know it's like serial and parallel, but I don't remember exactly what they do, so I'm sorry that I can't explain it. Just keep it on parallel. Our mix determines whether we only hear filter 1 or hear filter 2 or a mixture of both. Our amp, you can just keep that. Everyone keeps it normal. Bypass, not important. Master volume. And you can see it has a nice little clipping thing, so you know when it's clipping. Effects. Note that effects 1 has all the distortion, like Teletube, Classic Tube, and the Bronner Tube, however you pronounce that. And filter 2, or effects 2, does not. So make sure if you're going to use Teletube that you put it on effects 1, because you don't want to like set up your dimension expander and be like, yeah, this is the perfect setting, everything's perfect, and then, oh crap, I have to put on Teletube for more distortion and blah blah blah. So that's crap, so just remember that. Then we have an EQ, which is off by default, so you turn it on by pressing this little button. How far am I? Whatever. You have a low shelf, which is obviously your lows. You have a boost frequencies. So this will boost whatever frequency you set it to on here. Then you have a high shelf, which is your highs. If you don't really know EQ, don't usually play around with it. But by the end of this, you should have a basic, if not a pretty well understanding of EQing. So now onto this. Right now we're on the global tab. Nothing really important. You can leave all this as is. What else? A routing, again, this is more advanced. You could play around and change where your feedback comes in and insert twos, turn it on and whatnot. This is more advanced again. You have a voicing tab, which is probably where you're going to spend most of your time in terms of these tabs. And from here you can see you have a maximum number of voices. Default 16, so you don't destroy your CPU. And unison, so like you can see that's set to 1 by default. Let's set it to 2 real quick. You have polyphonic, which means you can play multiple notes at one time. Monophonic, which means you can only play one at a time. And if you let go, you can't do a trill yet. Monorotate is the same thing. Only I'm pretty sure that, or monorotate is that it doesn't reset, or it resets the envelope again. Don't hold me to that. I just use monophonic, and I put it on legato triller, which means that you can hold a note down and then trill. Which is pretty much always a good thing. You have a something to note about these is that you have to have more than one unison for any of them to really have an effect. So that's why I usually put it on 2 or 3. Let's say pitch cutoff. You could change these values too, but by default it's set to 0 and 1. You could hear as it's on. So with the unisons, it has 2 voices, and with pitch cutoff, it's gonna detune these voices from each other. Like usually, just do a little bit, and you'll get a cool effect that doesn't sound like that doesn't sound like you don't know what you're doing. I'm sorry, I have to stop using that word. And so let's try wavetable position. Plays around with this pretty much. So pan position, which is probably the best one of them all. Right now in the middle it's set to mono, but we can watch. It's really cool. It widens your sound. Like if I had a good sound, you'll be able to hear it. And I'm being eaten by that damn mosquito. Okay, so that's that. These don't really matter. Right here you have again, it's not really important, but you have like, this is the only thing that I really use from this. I don't play around with these because I don't really want to. But glide time, if you have it set to monophonic, and you could do glides. And the time, if it's set to equal, you can change the time it takes from one note to another. So this is C3 to C4. And that's with a kind of a slow one. So that's that. Rate is depending on how far the note is that you're going to next, it'll change the amount of time it takes. So from see how it's shorter between these two? And then it's longer between these two. So that's kind of cool, a cool effect. And so that's that for all those tabs. And now you have your envelope, which you guys should know. You have a decay of the entire envelope. You have an attack, how long it takes to get to that main point, a level of that main point. You have a decay, which goes to your sustain. Here's your sustain, which is labeled as level. Don't worry about these two or these three, really. And then you have a release, which is like a release. Something to note is that by default, 4 is your amp envelope, so just keep that in mind. So now you have your LFO, low frequency oscillator. So we can use this to like I wonder why that's so low. That's why it's so low. We could use this low frequency oscillator to modulate automatically some knobs. So like with this on, it's gonna take whatever our rate is, we can sync it to like 1/2 or 1/8. And that'll mean that it goes 1, 2, 3, 4. Like it goes like this, but automatically. So watch. So instead of having to modulate this manually, we can set this to like that, and then we can modulate this. Or automated, I mean. And you get some weird effects, like you could put like this on the rate. Or this on the rate. That would sound a little better. But that's also going into like, so you have, I'll tell you in a second. You have your rate, which is how fast it goes. You can sync it. You have an amp. You can tell, like, the lower the amp, the less the LFO has an effect on the knob. This X fade curve, which means that like you can change between this wave and this wave. Let's set this to a sawtooth. And between these, like you have also you have these clicking on here. And also you can move these around. So it's best like with this one or this one. So that's that. And you have your performer. You can change them up here. See where it says LFO? Change that to performer. And this is like an LFO. It's like a cool LFO in my opinion. And this is like, you know how we had it set to sawtooth? It's kind of like that. Like let's say our LFO is set to this with the ratio of 1/4 as the speed and the sawtooth. It'll sound exactly the same as this performer with the sawtooth up here. But the cool thing with this one is that you can load a curve in, and you could change this up. So like, let's say you wanted something like this, and you can shrink it so it's only playing that 4. And like, so that's really cool. I love the Performer. A stepper, I don't really use it. I don't like it. But it's just like manually. You can see how it affects the cutoff like that instead of like a smooth transition. Like, watch. So it's like all the way half off half. So there you go. That's massive. That's everything you need to know. And now, pro tip, just play around, do whatever. Like, I'll show you real quick. I'm just gonna screw around, not really knowing what I'm doing. I'll tell you, a popular one is Modern Talking. A popular one is Deep Throat. Scrapyard for Dubstep, Silver, AI, Chrome. Let me put my... So I'm just playing around so you guys can see. If you just kind of do whatever, you can get some pretty cool sounds out of Massive. Ow. So there you go. That's a quick tutorial. Just remember to play around with it, and just remember everything I told you about what everything does, and just think of it like just experimenting. Just play around. This sounds cool. Add it. Add some crap to it. Don't add crap to it. Do whatever. Like, just have fun. Like, whatever. You know what I'm talking about? Yeah. Okay, so I'll see you guys next time. We'll be working on the drop. And I know you guys are probably, like, watching this because you want to be, like, oh, man, I love Skrillex, or I want to be like Skrillex. But I can't be like Skrillex, so I'll show you, like, my style. I don't know where I was going with that. I just know that I most likely won't be doing wub, wub, wub like I did in my first tutorial. But I hope you guys continue to watch, and I'll see you guys next time. I know you guys will continue to watch, so